I have read before where you've said that America is in receivership, which I completely agree with you on that. I think you're referring to the Emergency Banking Act in 1933. Could you explain that a little bit, the context of that to our listeners?
The Emergency Banking Act was no more than a continued expansion of the Federal Reserve creating money and credit, just like they are now. And the federal government increased their debt by 45% between 1930 and 1940. And in 1939, unemployment was 22%, and in 1940, it was 16.4%. It had a high approximately of 30%. There's no real figures that I can get a hold of that bear out what the number was, but it wasn't a good one. And so what FDR did not work. And other countries were doing the same thing. It didn't work. And when I went into counterintelligence back in the 50s, the first thing I found out was that the Japanese diplomatic code had been broken by both the British and the U.S. in 1937. So we set up the World War II by allowing Japan to come in and do what they did at Pearl Harbor. And there's been many other instances of things like this in our history, the sinking of the Maine, which was a put-up job as well. And it goes on in history. And it's just like 9/11. You know, a bunch of people supposedly executed that one. It would have been impossible. And I'm not going to get into it deeply, but I do not believe of Muslims went about doing that. And I see today that they want to allow the Muslims in Guantanamo who supposedly were responsible for 9/11 to plead guilty without a trial so they can execute them. I mean, these people are so insane in our government and behind our government and so sick, it's beyond words.
Oh, I agree with you on that. We've got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes before we come up on a break, and just quickly to cover some of what you were saying there, this torture issue that is coming out, we will release the photos. We want, the reason they're filming this in the first place. I mean, it's a shame on America, and it amazes me that so many people seem to be okay with this, you know, and what you just said about Gitmo executing the prisoners, I mean, in my wildest dreams, I really didn't think I would see some of the things coming to fruition that we are seeing right now.
Well, America, and the world for that matter, has in a great many ways lost its conscience and its morality. And it can be regained, but it's going to take a long time to do it. And people just don't care as long as it doesn't directly affect them. That's why when you and I tell them things about what's really going on the radio, most of them say, well, you know, what can I do about it? What do I care? And so that's why you don't hear the hue and cry come from the public, because they have been hardened to all of these terrible things going on. And, you know, if this happened in 1953, the things that you're seeing today, the reactions would have been totally different. My goodness, there would have been something done about it. Today, there's little or nothing done about it.
Yeah, we have said here on this radio broadcast, if they had attempted to rob and loot our great-grandpappies like they're doing right now to the American people, I believe they might would have stood up and objected a little bit to it. But the apathy of the American people to sit back and take this robbery, and, you know, a good job, a lifetime good job is a thing of the past. Retirement's a thing of the past. Factory jobs nationwide gone, overrun with illegal aliens. The government won't enforce immigration policy. You can't drag them kicking and screaming, and the American people overwhelmingly want this done. It's just an amazing time to see what's going on in our country. Mr. Chapman, we're coming up on a break. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Chapman, the International Forecaster, theinternationalforecaster.com, and we'll turn it to Brian.
Good morning, Mr. Chapman.
Good morning.
We've been seeing commodities rise here significantly in the past few weeks. I was speculating just here to myself that it's primarily a hedge against inflation, and there's also an irony there that a lot of these big banks have stolen all of our money, and now they're putting it back into, say, oil futures, and now we're having to pay more for gas. I mean, it's like we got it twice. What is your opinion on that one?
It's called the worst of all worlds. And gasoline will very shortly be $3 a gallon. It wasn't but 2 weeks ago. It was around $2.20. Wholesale gasoline prices are moving up toward their former highs over $2 a gallon. And so you can expect that. And, of course, it's a peak driving season, and oil companies and refiners use that as an excuse to raise prices. And so one of the interesting things is that a lot of these things you see going on in markets by banks and brokerage firms and others, that includes now 6 major insurance companies, actually no 7. And what they're doing with that TARP money is they're buying those commodities. They're gambling with the money, and you're supplying it, which makes it even worse. And that's why that Federal Reserve legislation is so important, because we don't want these kind of things to continue. At least there'll be more transparency, having the Treasury handle monetary matters. Yes, I know politics will get involved, but politics get involved with the Federal Reserve as well. There's a very fine line between politics and financial and economic power. And, of course, in our society today, over the last 8 years, they've been wedded together in what one may call corporatist fascism. And that's the kind of government that we have right now.
That is the definition of fascism, basically, is the meshing of corporate interests with the government, is it not?
It is. That's totally correct. You have a thing called socialism, which is a kind of an in-between thing between fascism and communism. And so, the idea is to pick your poison if you want to do that. And the people who are the power behind government in the United States and many other countries, they want a world socialist economy, a world economy with a world currency controlled from some headquarters where they can dictate everything to people and virtually enslave them. And this is what they're after. They certainly are insane.
We had reported a couple of weeks ago on a report out of the military where they were saying they could respond to a cyber attack with nuclear weapons, and then last week Barack Obama had it back on the front page. He's going to appoint a cyber czar. Cybersecurity is back on the forefront. Do you believe we might see some kind of false flag attack, saying that we've been attacked, what's a cyber attack, and then the internet as we know it becoming a thing of the past?
It's possible, and do you know, everything is possible. We don't know what these people are going to do, and they have the power to at least initiate those kind of things. It's an unanswerable question. You hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. But in this case, with the internet, there's nothing you can compare for. If they have the ability to shut it down, it's shut down. There's not too much you can do about it, other than try to resurrect it via the government. Whether that'll happen or not remains to be seen, because all they have to do is.
You know that the truth movement has really gained most of its momentum via the internet, and the beauty of a cyber attack for them to hoax it or a false flag event would be, unlike 9/11, where we had film and eyewitnesses, we would actually just be having to take the government's word for what happened, and what an amazing situation that would be for us to be in.
Yeah, you're right. And so it's something that you can't defend against, at least not from my perspective. But then again, I'm not a professional. I feel maybe there are things you can do. I really don't know. But I certainly think it's something they've considered.